I'm going to talk us through this trip because writing captions for all the photographs is really tedious. So there's Margaret, sitting in a comfortable bus. We crossed over into the States at Wellesley Island, New York, just near Kingston. Here's a map of the route. It's hard to take pictures from a bus, so I didn't. But we had a really interesting, picturesque trip down. You go down through New York State, through the Appalachian Mountains in Pennsylvania, and then, well, here's it in detail. The first stop is Syracuse. And from Syracuse, you zoom on down to Binghamton, cross over into Pennsylvania, go down through Scranton, through the mountains, which are beautiful. Then you turn east through New Jersey towards New York City, and you end up coming through the Lincoln Tunnel into Manhattan itself. Took some street scenes, shots, as we wound our way towards the hotel. I guess it was about 4 o'clock, so they're not eating lunch. And we finally ended up at the Sheraton Hotel on 53rd and 7th Avenue, where we settled in. Our first evening we walked. We walked up to Central Park and then downtown towards Times Square. There's an interesting building. I don't know what it is, but there's a marvelous mixture of old buildings and new buildings in New York. There are the lights on, I think, 6th Avenue. No, that's Broadway. We're going down towards Times Square. Lots of bright lights, of course. You've got to see Times Square your first evening in New York. And all the crowds. There are always crowds there. I don't know what this guy was doing, but every time we went to Times Square, there he was in his interesting suit. Barclays Bank, among other things. Hey, that's where our money is, so we had to see it. Very impressive. And more bright lights. And still more bright lights. By now we should have been dog-tired since we'd been up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch the bus. Our first dinner in New York was at the Playwright Restaurant, which we just happened upon. No plans, just found it. Very subdued, very relaxed atmosphere and a beautiful meal. And so to bed. Since we'd done all the standard tourist things on the previous visit to New York, we decided we'd just walk, although our first stop was, after a walk west towards the Hudson River, to the USS Intrepid Space and Air Museum. And here it is. Here's a view from the Intrepid. The Intrepid's an aircraft carrier that saw service in World War II and in fact was hit by kamikaze several times. These are views from the deck, from the flight deck of the Intrepid. Some aircraft, various types, old and new. The real story is probably down in the hangar deck, where they do a marvelous exhibit showing you the spot where the kamikaze actually struck it. Here's a beautiful view of the USS Intrepid. And here's Margaret relaxing while we prepare to go on a taxi ride. Just a block south of the Intrepid is a stopping point for the New York hop-on, hop-off water taxis, where you can buy a ticket and basically make your way all the way around the harbor, stopping off if you want to. Here's the pilot, driver, getting ready to go. So we bought a ticket and boarded. Here are various scenes as we make our way down the Hudson River towards the East River entrance, and there are various spots. There's stop-off points. Like, I think this one was where it was originally built for the Titanic to land at. Of course, it never quite made it. But there's some beautiful shots of the New York skyline as you walk your way down the Hudson River. Until finally you come in view of the east entrance to the East River at the Brooklyn Bridge, which you can see on the right-hand side. Here she is. And the water taxi actually does land on the Brooklyn side at a place called Dumbo. I forget why it's called Dumbo, but anyway, this is the jetty where it lands. Here we see Margaret sitting with the other passengers as they board. Some board and some get off at Dumbo. And here's our first sight of course you know what this is, don't you? That's the Statue of Liberty. There she is a little bit close up. We didn't land there, but we have a couple of shots. Well, let's see what we got here. This is Ellis Island, and this is the Grand Hall where all the immigrants came and were processed before being let in. You know, the tired and homeless. This is the New Jersey Railroad station where after they were processed at Ellis Island, they went to catch trains. And here's our tour guide. On the left you can see DC, our tour guide pointing out all the sights. After the ride we walk back to the hotel. There's a street scene. And Margaret got herself gussied up for our second evening out. And this time we went to Rosie O'Grady's Steak and Seafood Saloon. Another nice day for walking around the city. The weather was beautiful. So we started off with Top of the Rock, the Rockefeller Center, and the big high 90-story building that gives you a beautiful view. On our way there we passed Radio City and entered the building. This is just a shot, not a very good one, of the beautiful chandelier that's inside. You walk up 3 or 4 floors before you get to the elevator. This is a view out through the top of the elevator as you zoom up to 90 floors above New York City. And here is Margaret enjoying the view. There's a lot of shots of buildings, different directions. You can see the Empire State Building. The top of the rock is about 10-15 stories low, I suppose, but you can see it. I'm not going to try to identify all the directions. I can't. Some things will be obvious. This one, for instance, there's the Empire State Building just to the left of center, so you're looking south towards Battery Park. There's a closer shot of the Empire State Building. And here's a shot of Margaret in the Empire State Building. Have you seen enough pictures of the Empire State Building? You must have seen enough by now, haven't you? Sure you have. Here's Central Park with a few buildings in between. The rock is at about 34th Street, I think. No, sorry, 40th Street. And here's a view of the... We've climbed to the very top, so there's an observation deck below that's all wired in so that people can't jump out. And here you can just about see the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges at the beginning of the East River. Now I'm looking down as far as I can point the camera, and here's maybe a better one with a host of people. We were lucky. We got in early and didn't have to line up too much. And the last shot from the top is a better view of Central Park. Now we're down at the bottom, and we're at the Rockefeller Center skating rink with the famous statue. People skating. Remember, this is a Saturday morning and it's a nice day, so there's loads of people out in downtown Manhattan. And we found a couple of... Most of the people are amateurs, but these two, they knew how to skate. While Margaret went to Saks Fifth Avenue, I found a marvelous Lego shop, and it's right close to the Rockefeller Center ice rink, and it is beautiful. If you know Lego, this is a huge This thing here has all these little compartments where you can buy all the pieces and get all the pieces of different colours and just collect them. And I couldn't resist taking shots of the kids who basically got a mountain of Lego and they can choose whatever they like. And here are some. This little thing allowed the kids to reach in and they can build their own little Lego figure. This young lady is intent on creating something. On my line is this beautiful Sopwith camel. So much for the Lego Centre. Much more interesting than Saks. And now it's time to visit Central Park. And here we are at the 7th Avenue entrance. But before we did go into the park, we saw this fantastic display by the Rantastic Dancers. A team of athletic dancers. Brilliant performance. And they caught quite a crowd. I think the highlight came when they got some unsuspecting folks from the crowd, stood them in a line, and had one of the guys do a tumble leapfrog over all of them. At which point, of course, they passed around the bucket for contributions. I'm not sure what Margaret liked most, the dancing or this big hunk standing right next to her. The park is still in its fall colours, or at least it was when we left. Remember, this is before Hurricane Sandy. And we got someone to take our picture, which, hey, that might be a good one for the Christmas newsletter. Lots of people still enjoying the weather. And interesting views outside the park. Look at that old building nestled up against the new one. New York is full of old buildings. And they even have an ice rink in Central Park. New Yorkers seem to love ice skating. Why not? Now, if you look real closely at the Statue of Liberty, you will see that it's a person. On our way back down 7th Avenue, we passed this lovely old building, Alwyn Court, and then, almost next to it, Carnegie Hall. We all know how to get to Carnegie Hall, don't we? Yeah. And so we got ready for our last evening out. We decided to eat first, but again, no definite plan, so we walked down to the Hell's Kitchen area, which is west of Times Square, and which has literally hundreds of restaurants, one after another. And we found Giorgio's Country Grill. The meal was exquisite and the dessert to die for. After the meal, back out into the traffic and a stroll down one more time to Times Square, where we passed the latest shows in town. I think Mamma Mia is still running big. And then the one that I think I would have liked to have seen was Jersey Boys. Then we passed the Stardust Diner, another famous landmark. And so down past our first restaurant, Playwrights, and then into Times Square, where actually Microsoft was doing a big promo for Windows 8. I've seen Windows 8. I guess it's great if you have a touch screen, but if you don't, big deal. And then Sunday morning at about noon, we jumped on the bus and got out of town. About less than 24 hours before Hurricane Tornado Sandy breezed in, and I do mean breezed.